Section 3 of the Aeneid of Virgil. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Aeneid of Virgil. Translated by John Dryden. Book 2, Part 1. All were attentive to the godlike man, when from his lofty couch he thus began: Great Queen, what you command me to relate renews the sad remembrance of our fate. An empire from its old foundations rent, and every woe the Trojans underwent. A peopled city made a desert place, all that I saw, and part of which I was. Not even the hardest of our foes could hear, nor stern Ulysses tell without a tear. And now the latter watch of wasting night and setting stars to kindly rest invite. But since you take such interest in our woe, and Troy's disastrous end desire to know, I will restrain my tears, and briefly tell what in our last and fatal night befell. By destiny compell'd, and in despair, the Greeks grew weary of the tedious war, and by Minerva's aid a fabric rear'd, which like a steed of monstrous height appear'd. The sides were planked with pine; they feign'd it made for their return, and this the vow they paid. Thus they pretend, but in the hollow side selected numbers of their soldiers hide. With inward arms the dire machine they load, and iron bowels stuff the dark abode. In sight of Troy lies Tenedos, an isle, while Fortune did on Priam's empire smile, renown'd for wealth; but since a faithless bay, where ships exposed to wind and weather lay, there was their fleet conceal'd. We thought for Greece their sails were hoisted, and our fears release. The Trojans, coop'd within their walls so long, unbar their gates, and issue in a throng, like swarming bees, and with delight survey the camp deserted where the Grecians lay. The quarters of the several chiefs they show'd: here Phoenix, here Achilles made abode. Here join'd the battles, there the navy rode. Part on the pile their wond'ring eyes employ, the pile by Pallas rais'd to ruin Troy. Thymoetes first ('tis doubtful whether hir'd, or so the Trojan destiny requir'd) mov'd that the ramparts might be broken down, to lodge the monster fabric in the town. But Capys, and the rest of sounder mind, the fatal present to the flames design'd, or to the wat'ry deep, at least to bore the hollow sides, and hidden frauds explore. The giddy vulgar, as their fancies guide, with noise say nothing, and in parts divide. Laocoon, follow'd by a num'rous crowd, ran from the fort, and cried from far aloud: O wretched countrymen, what fury reigns? What more than madness has possess'd your brains? Think you the Grecians from your coasts are gone? And are Ulysses' arts no better known? This hollow fabric must either inclose within its blind recess our secret foes, or 'tis an engine rais'd above the town, to o'erlook the walls, and then to batter down. Somewhat is sure design'd, by fraud or force. Trust not their presence, nor admit the horse. Thus having said, against the steed he threw his forceful spear, which, hissing as flew, pierc'd through the yielding planks of jointed wood, and trembling in the hollow belly stood. The sides, transpierc'd, return a rattling sound, and groans of Greeks enclosed come issuing through the wound. And had not Heav'n the fall of Troy design'd, or had not men been fated to be blind, enough was said and done to inspire a better mind. Then had our lances pierc'd the treach'rous wood, and Ilian towers and Priam's empire stood. Meantime with shouts the Trojan shepherds bring a captive Greek in bands before the king, taken to take, who made himself their prey. to impose on their belief, and Troy betray. Fix'd on his aim, and obstinately bent to die undaunted, or to circumvent. About the captive, tides of Trojans flow; all press to see, and some insult the foe. Now hear how well the Greeks their wiles disguised: behold a nation in a man comprised! Trembling the miscreant stood, unarm'd and bound; He star'd, and roll'd his haggard eyes around, Then said: "Alas! what earth remains, what sea Is open to receive unhappy me? What fate a wretched fugitive attends, Scorn'd by my foes, abandon'd by my friends?" He said, and sigh'd, and cast a rueful eye. Our pity kindles, and our passions die. We cheer youth to make his own defence, And freely tell us what he was, and whence. What news he could impart, we long to know, And what to credit from a captive foe. His fear at length dismiss'd, he said: "Whate'er my fate ordains, my words shall be sincere. I neither can nor dare my birth disclaim. Greece is my country, Sinon is my name. Tho' plung'd by fortune's pow'r in misery, 'Tis not in fortune's pow'r to make me lie. If any chance has hither brought the name Of Palamedes, not unknown to fame, Who, suffer'd from the malice of the times, Accus'd and sentenc'd for pretended crimes, Because these fatal wars he would prevent, Whose death the wretched Greeks too late lament; Me then, a boy, my father, poor and bare Of other means, committed to his care, His kinsman and companion in the war; While fortune favour'd, while his arms support The cause, and rul'd the councils of the court, I made some figure there; nor was my name Obscure, nor I without my share of fame. But when Ulysses, with fallacious arts, Had made impression in the people's hearts, And forg'd a treason in my patron's name, (I speak of things too far divulg'd by fame,) My kinsman fell. Then I, without support, In private mourn'd his loss, and left the court. Mad as I was, I could not bear his fate With silent grief, but loudly blam'd the state, And curs'd the direful author of my woes. 'Twas told again, and hence my ruin rose. I threaten'd, if indulgent Heav'n once more Would land me safely on my native shore, His death with double vengeance to restore. This mov'd the murderer's hate, and soon ensued Th' effects of malice from a man so proud. Ambiguous rumours thro' the camp he spread, And sought by treason my devoted head; New crimes invented, left unturn'd no stone, To make my guilt appear, and hide his own. Till Calchas was by force and threat'ning wrought. But why dwell I on that anxious thought? If on my nation just revenge you seek, And 'tis to appear a foe, to appear a Greek, Already you my name and country know: Assuage your thirst of blood, and strike the blow. My death will both the kingly brothers please, And set insatiate Ithacus at ease." This fair unfinish'd tale, these broken starts, Raised expectations in our longing hearts, Unknowing as we were in Grecian arts. His former trembling once again renew'd, With acted fear the villain thus pursued. Long had the Grecians, tir'd with fruitless care, And wearied with an unsuccessful war, Resolv'd to raise the siege, and leave the town; And, had the gods permitted, they had gone. But oft the wintry seas and southern winds Withstood their passage home, and chang'd their minds. Portents and prodigies their souls amaz'd; But most when this stupendous pile was rais'd. Then flaming meteors hung in air were seen, And thunders rattled thro' a sky serene. Dismay'd, and fearful of some dire event, Eurypylus to enquire their fate was sent. He from the gods this dreadful answer brought: "O Grecians, when the Trojan shores you sought, Your passage with a virgin's blood was bought. So must your safe return be bought again, And Grecian blood once more atone the main." The spreading rumour round the people ran; All fear'd, and each believ'd himself the man. Ulysses took th' advantage of their fright. call'd Calchas, and produced in open sight, then bade him name the wretch ordain'd by fate the public victim to redeem the state. Already some presaged the dire event, and saw what sacrifice Ulysses meant. For twice 5 days the good old seer withstood th' intended treason, and was dumb to blood, till, tir'd with endless clamours and pursuit of Ithacus, he stood no longer mute; but, as it was agreed, pronounc'd that I was destin'd by the wrathful gods to die. All prais'd the sentence, pleas'd the storm should fall on one alone whose fury threaten'd all. The dismal day was come; the priests prepare their leaven'd cakes and fillets for my hair. I follow'd nature's laws, and must avow I broke my bonds, and fled the fatal blow. Hid in a weedy lake all night I lay, secure of safety when they sail'd away. But now what further hopes for me remain, to see my friends or native soil again? My tender infants, or my careful sire, whom they returning will to death require, will perpetrate on them their first design, and take the forfeit of their heads for mine? Which, oh, if pity mortal minds can move, if there be faith below, or gods above, if innocence and truth can claim desert, ye Trojans, from an injur'd wretch avert. False tears true pity move. The king commands to loose his fetters, and unbind his hands; then adds these friendly words: "Dismiss thy fears, forget the Greeks, be mine as thou wert theirs. But truly tell, was it for force or guile, or some religious end, you rais'd the pile?" Thus said the king. He, full of fraudful arts, this well-invented tale for truth imparts. "Ye lamps of heav'n," he said, and lifted high his hands now free, "thou venerable sky, inviolable powers, ador'd with dread, ye fatal fillets that once bound this head, ye sacred altars from whose flames I fled, be all of you adjur'd, and grant I may, without a crime, th' ungrateful Greeks betray, reveal the secrets of the guilty state, and justly punish whom I justly hate. But you, O king, preserve the faith you gave, if I, to save myself, your empire save." The Grecian hopes, and all the attempts they made, were only founded on Minerva's aid. But from the time when impious Diomed and false Ulysses, that inventive head, her fatal image from the temple drew, the sleeping guardians of the castle slew, her virgin statue with their bloody hands polluted, and profan'd her holy bands; from thence the tide of fortune left their shore, and ebb'd much faster than it flow'd before. Their courage languish'd as their hopes decay'd, and Pallas, now averse, refus'd her aid. Nor did the goddess doubtfully declare her alter'd mind and alienated care. When first her fatal image touch'd the ground, she sternly cast her glaring eyes around, that sparkled as they roll'd, and seem'd to threat; her heav'nly limbs distill'd the briny sweat. Thrice from the ground she leap'd, was seen to wield her brandish'd lance, and shake her horrid shield. Then Calchas bade our host for flight, and hope no conquest from the tedious war, till first they sail'd for Greece, with prayers besought her injur'd pow'r, and better omens brought. And now their navy plows the wat'ry main, yet soon expect it on your shores again, with Pallas pleas'd, as Calchas did ordain. But first, to reconcile the blue-eyed maid, for her stolen statue and her tow'r betray'd, warn'd by the seer to her offended name, we rais'd and dedicate this wondrous frame. So lofty, lest thro' your forbidden gates it pass, and intercept our better fates; for, once admitted there, our hopes are lost, and Troy may then a new Palladium boast. For so religion and the gods ordain, that, if you violate with hands profane Minerva's gift, your town in flames shall burn; which omen, O ye gods, on Grecia turn. But if it climb, with your assisting hands, the Trojan walls, and in the city stands, then Troy shall Argos and Mycenae burn, and the reverse of fate on us return. With such deceits he gain'd their easy hearts, too prone to credit his perfidious arts. What Diomed, nor Thetis' greater son, 1,000 ships, nor 10 years' siege had done, False tears and fawning words the city won. A greater omen, and of worse portent, Did our unwary minds with fear torment, Concurring to produce the dire event. Laocoon, Neptune's priest by lot that year, With solemn pomp then sacrific'd a steer; When, dreadful to behold, from sea we spied 2 serpents, rank'd abreast, the seas divide, And smoothly sweep along the swelling tide. Their flaming crests above the waves they show; Their bellies seem to burn the seas below. Their speckled tails advance to steer their course, And on the sounding shore the flying billows force. And now the strand, and now the plain they held; Their ardent eyes with bloody streaks were fill'd; Their nimble tongues they brandish'd as they came, And lick'd their hissing jaws that sputter'd flame. We fled amaz'd; their destin'd way they take, And to Laocoon and his children make. And first around the tender boys they wind, Then with their sharpen'd fangs their limbs and bodies grind. The wretched father running to their aid With pious haste, but vain, they next invade. Twice round his waist their winding volumes roll'd, And twice about his gasping throat they fold. The priest thus doubly chok'd, their crests divide, And tow'ring o'er his head in triumph ride. With both his hands he labours at the knots; His holy fillets the blue venom blots; His roaring fills the flitting air around. Thus, when an ox receives a glancing wound, He breaks his bands, the fatal altar flies, And with loud bellowings breaks the yielding skies. Their tasks perform'd, the serpents quit their prey, And to the tow'r of Pallas make their way. Couch'd at her feet, they lie protected there By her large buckler and protended spear. Amazement seizes all. The gen'ral cry Proclaims Laocoon justly doom'd to die, Whose hand the will of Pallas had withstood, And dared to violate the sacred wood. All vote to admit the steed, that vows be paid, And incense offer'd to th' offended maid. A spacious breach is made; the town lies bare. Some hoisting levers, some the wheels prepare, And fasten to the horses' feet; the rest With cables haul along th' unwieldy beast. Each on his fellow for assistance calls. At length the fatal fabric mounts the walls, Big with destruction. Boys with chaplets crown'd, And choirs of virgins, sing and dance around. Thus rais'd aloft, and then descending down, It enters o'er our heads, and threats the town. O sacred city, built by hands divine! O valiant heroes of the Trojan line! 4 times he struck, as oft the clashing sound Of arms was heard, and inward groans rebound. Yet, mad with zeal, and blinded with our fate, We haul along the horse in solemn state; Then place the dire portent within the tow'r. Cassandra cried, and curs'd th' unhappy hour, Foretold our fate; but, by the gods' decree, All heard, and none believ'd the prophecy. With branches we the fanes adorn, and waste In jollity the day ordain'd to be the last. Meantime the rapid heavens roll'd down the light, And on the shaded ocean rush'd the night. Our men secure, nor guards nor sentries held, But easy sleep their weary limbs compell'd. The Grecians had embark'd their naval pow'rs From Tenedos, and sought our well-known shores. Safe under covert of the silent night, And guided by th' imperial galley's light, When Sinon, favour'd by the partial gods, Unlock'd the horse, and oped his dark abodes, Restor'd to vital air our hidden foes, Who, joyful, from their long confinement rose; Tysander bold, and Sthenelus their guide, And dire Ulysses down the cable slide. Then Thoas, Athamas, and Pyrrhus haste; Nor was the Podalirian hero last, Nor injur'd Menelaus, nor the fam'd Epeus, who the fatal engine fram'd. A nameless crowd succeed; their forces join To invade the town, oppress'd with sleep and wine. Those few they find awake first meet their fate, then to their fellows they unbar the gate. 'Twas in the dead of night, when sleep repairs our bodies worn with toils, our minds with cares, when Hector's ghost before my sight appears. A bloody shroud he seem'd, and bathed in tears, such as he was when by Pelides slain Thessalian coursers dragg'd him o'er the plain. Swollen were his feet, as when the thongs were thrust thro' the bored holes, his body black with dust, unlike that Hector who return'd from toils of war triumphant in Achaean spoils, or him who made the fainting Greeks retire, and launch'd against their navy Phrygian fire. His hair and beard stood stiffen'd with his gore, and all the wounds he for his country bore now stream'd afresh, and with new purple ran. I wept to see the visionary man, and, while my trance continued, thus began: O light of Trojans, and support of Troy, thy father's champion and thy country's joy! O long expected by thy friends, from whence art thou so late return'd for our defence? Do we behold thee, wearied as we are with length of labours and with toils of war? After so many funerals of thy own, art thou restor'd to thy declining town? But say, what wounds are these? What new disgrace deforms the manly features of thy face? To this the spectre no reply did frame, but answer'd to the cause for which he came; and, groaning from the bottom of his breast, this warning in these mournful words express'd: O goddess born, escape by timely flight the flames and horrors of this fatal night. The foes already have possess'd the wall; Troy nods from high, and totters to her fall. Enough is paid to Priam's royal name, more than enough to duty and to fame. If by a mortal hand my father's throne could be defended, 'twas by mine alone. Now Troy to thee commends her future state, and gives her gods companions of thy fate. From their assistance walls expect, which wand'ring long at last thou shalt erect. He said, and brought me from their blest abodes the venerable statues of the gods, with ancient Vesta from the sacred choir, the wreaths and relics of th' immortal fire. Now peals of shouts come thundering from afar, cries, threats, and loud laments, and mingled war. The noise approaches, though our palace stood aloof from streets, encompass'd with a wood. Louder and yet more loud I hear th' alarms of human cries distinct, and clashing arms. Fear broke my slumbers; I no longer stay, but mount the terrace, thence the town survey, and hearken what the frightful sounds convey. Thus, when a flood of fire by wind is borne, crackling it rolls, and mows the standing corn; or deluges, descending on the plains, sweep o'er the yellow year, destroy the pains of lab'ring oxen and the peasant's gains, unroot the forest oaks, and bear away flocks, folds, and trees, and undistinguish'd prey. The shepherd climbs the cliff, and sees from far the wasteful ravage of the wat'ry war. Then Hector's faith was manifestly clear'd, and Grecian frauds in open light appear'd. The palace of Deiphobus ascends in smoky flames, and catches on his friends. Ucalegon burns next; the seas are bright with splendour not their own, and shine with Trojan light. New clamours and new clangors now arise, the sound of trumpets mix'd with fighting cries. With frenzy seiz'd, I run to meet th' alarms, resolv'd on death, resolv'd to die in arms, but first to gather friends, with them to oppose, if fortune favour'd, and repel the foes. Spurr'd by my courage, by my country fir'd, with sense of honour and revenge inspir'd. Pantheus, Apollo's priest, a sacred name, had scap'd the Grecian swords, and pass'd the flame. With relics loaden, to my doors he fled, and by the hand his tender grandson led. What hope, O Pantheus? Whither can we run? Where make a stand? And what may yet be done? Scarce had I said, when Pantheus with a groan: Troy is no more, and Ilium was a town. The fatal day, the appointed hour is come, when wrathful Jove's irrevocable doom transfers the Trojan state to Grecian hands. The fire consumes the town, the foe commands, and arm'd hosts, an unexpected force, break from the bowels of the fatal horse. Within the gates, proud Sinon throws about the flames, and foes for entrance press without, with 1,000 others, whom I fear to name. More than from Argos or Mycenae came. To sev'ral posts their parties they divide: some block the narrow streets, some scour the wide. The bold they kill, the unwary they surprise. Who fights finds death, and death finds him who flies. The warders of the gate but scarce maintain th' unequal combat, and resist in vain. I heard, and Heav'n, that well-born souls inspires, prompts me thro' lifted swords and rising fires to run where clashing arms and clamour calls, and rush undaunted to defend the walls. Ripheus and Iphitus by my side engage, for valour one renown'd, and one for age. Demas and Hippanis by moonlight knew my motions and my mien, and to my party drew, with young Corybus, who by love was led to win renown and fair Cassandra's bed, and lately brought his troops to Priam's aid, forewarn'd in vain by the prophetic maid. Whom when I saw resolv'd in arms to fall, and that one spirit animated all, "Brave souls," said I, "but brave, alas, in vain! Come, finish what our cruel fates ordain. You see the desperate state of our affairs, and Heav'n's protecting powers are deaf to prayers. The passive gods behold the Greeks defile their temples, and abandon to the spoil their own abodes. We, feeble few, conspire to save a sinking town involv'd in fire. Then let us fall, but fall amidst our foes. Despair of life the means of living shows." So bold a speech encourag'd their desire Of death, and added fuel to their fire. As hungry wolves with raging appetite scour thro' the fields, nor fear the stormy night, their whelps at home expect the promis'd food, and long to temper their dry chaps in blood, so rush'd we forth at once, resolv'd to die, resolv'd in death the last extremes to try. We leave the narrow lanes behind, and dare th' unequal combat in the public square. Night was our friend, our leader was despair. What tongue can tell the slaughter of that night? What eyes can weep the sorrows and affright? An ancient and imperial city falls; the streets are fill'd with frequent funerals; houses and holy temples float in blood, and hostile nations make a common flood. Not only Trojans fall, but, in their turn, the vanquish'd triumph, and the victors mourn. Ours take new courage from despair and night. Confus'd the fortune is, confus'd the fight; all parts resound with tumults, plaints, and fears, and grisly death in sundry shapes appears. Androgeos fell among us with his band, who thought us Grecians newly come to land. "From whence," said he, "my friends, this long delay? You loiter while the spoils are borne away; our ships are laden with the Trojan store, and you, like truants, come too late ashore." He said, but soon corrected his mistake, found by the doubtful answers which we make. Amaz'd he would have shunn'd th' unequal fight, but we more numerous intercept his flight, as when some peasant in a bushy brake has with unwary footing press'd a snake. He starts aside, astonish'd, when he spies his rising crest, blue neck, and rolling eyes. So from our arms surpris'd Androgeos flies. In vain; for him and his we compass'd round, possess'd with fear, unknowing of the ground, and of their lives an easy conquest found. Thus fortune on our first endeavour smil'd. Corybus then, with youthful hopes beguil'd, swollen with success and a daring mind, this new invention fatally design'd. "My friends," said he, "since fortune shows the way, 'Tis fit we should th' auspicious guide obey. For what has she these Grecian arms bestow'd, But their destruction and the Trojans' good? Then change we shields, and their devices bear; Let fraud supply the want of force in war. They find us arms." This said, himself he dress'd in dead Androgeos' spoils, his upper vest, His painted buckler, and his plumy crest. Thus Ripheus, Demas, all the Trojan train, lay down their own attire, and strip the slain. Mix'd with the Greeks, we go with ill presage, flatter'd with hopes to glut our greedy rage. Unknown, assaulting whom we blindly meet, and strew with Grecian carcasses the street. Thus, while their straggling parties we defeat, some to the shore and safer ships retreat, and some, oppress'd with more ignoble fear, remount the hollow horse, and pant in secret there. End of Section 3.